It is the Pineapple Grenadier that you're listening to right now, and this is the grand finale of the Lego Movie Retrospective I've been doing. I've had this idea for this retrospective for a really long time. I know I tend to say that a lot about a lot of different videos, but I've always wanted to talk about the Lego movies in extensive detail. As my approach or the things how I want to approach my videos changed throughout the years, a lot of the talking points that I had that I originally intended for this retrospective kind of got lost on the wayside. My approach to video making or script writing used to be a lot more broad, used to be a lot more reviews and stuff. I used to try and make the most out of all the buffalo, basically, just talk about everything. As I came to start streamlining how I approach making these videos, I found that just focusing exclusively on small aspects of a particular topic is more interesting. So in the case of the Lego Movie retrospective, I want to mostly focus on the themes of each film, and so a lot of specific critiques or observations simply just didn't get explained or explored in these videos. So this is sort of like a dumping ground of a whole bunch of stuff that I just never got around to talking about. And yeah, some of these were old ideas for videos, some of these were going to be in other videos, but I just wanted to, give some last quick thoughts before I never talk about any of these movies ever again. Yeah, so I think I want to kick things off with something that I wanted to kick off the retrospective initially. This was actually going to be a scripted video that I want to talk about, which was going to be kind of like the thing that underlined my initial thesis or my initial thoughts on these films, that they had a lot of depth that not a lot of people were talking about. I don't know, I guess you want to call this maybe like a hypothesis about how people viewed these films. So I guess if anyone's out of the loop, you've never looked at any discourse or reviews of any of these films, people tend to say that the first Lego movie is the best one. People tend to really like Lego Batman movie, but not necessarily as a Lego movie, but as a Batman movie. And then people either ignore or hate the Lego Ninjago movie, and most people are disappointed by the Lego movie sequel, Lego Movie 2. And me personally, I can't seem to align myself with this viewing of these films, mostly just because whenever I watch these films, I always feel like, I don't want to say that they get better, right? Because I'll probably elaborate more of this in the video, but I always have a hard time saying which movie is the best. It always feels weird to say one movie is better than the first Lego movie, but I don't know. I think as it's evident in the videos that I've been making about the movies, I do feel like a lot of these movies have a lot of depth that people aren't really willing to examine, and that these themes do compound on each other and build on each other. So I was always kind of curious as to why everyone was always so quick to disregard, the Lego Movie 2 or the Lego Ninjago movie as these uninteresting, unsubstantial films. And I had my hypothesis, and I don't know if it's very nice. I had this idea. So I was around ground zero, basically, when the first trailers for the Lego movie dropped, and I remember the general thought was that everyone was just kind of done with it before the movie even started, right? Everyone was just this is going to be just a cheap toy commercial. There's not going to be any substance. There's not going to be any heart. It's going to be the worst movie ever. And I don't know. I mean, I liked the animation. I thought the movie sounded really cool. Me as a kid, I didn't have a whole lot of Legos growing up. I think even back then they were kind of expensive. So I was always attached to a lot of ancillary Lego media. I loved Lego magazines. I loved the TV shows and TV specials, and I especially loved the video games. So an animated movie all about Lego was something that was really up my alley. So I think probably the most rewarding thing definitely was the fact that when the movie finally did come around, everybody loved it. Everybody was super into the movie. They thought it was this really endearing, very special thing. And I think a lot of the things, at least the thing I noticed a lot, was mostly the big focus on how novel the concept was, how original the concept was, how it was this fresh new thing that's never been done before. And I kind of like to argue against that. I don't want to say that the Lego movie is derivative, but it is building upon and examining themes about how we approach storytelling. And a lot of these concepts are not, or at the very least, I feel like it's not the first movie to examine that type, like the approach of how we like the examining the concept of like the literary lens of the chosen one or whatever. Like I think there's been several different types of movies that have attempted to try and examine this thing, this specific literary device. And so for me, while I liked the movie, I found it very endearing. I didn't find it very novel. And I think the reason why people latch on to the first Lego movie but disregard the rest of the other films mostly has to do with the fact that I think everybody's expectations were like super duper extremely low. Like I don't think anybody had any faith in this film. Sometimes when I rewatch the film, sometimes I like to imagine it like the movie being sort of like an autobiography about it trying to justify itself. Like think like try and replace any instance of a character saying, you know, Emmett is like the most boring person in the world, and replace the image of Emmett's face with like a poster of the Lego movie, right? I just that's kind of what the it's kind of what the discourse of the movie sounded like before the movie came out. And I just feel like it's less that the movie was really good. It was good, but I just think that like a lot of people's expectations for the film like were completely shattered because they went into the movie thinking it was going to be like the worst thing ever, and they were completely surprised. And I think the issue is just that because of that, I think the expectations of what these movies are supposed to be or what they're supposed to be getting out of them rose to like such an extreme degree that they couldn't ever really match them, right? If you've watched the rest of my Lego movie videos, then you know that I think all of these movies are really good. But the issue is that you can only be surprised once. Your expectations can only be shattered, I think, maybe once in a while, honestly. So I think the issue isn't that the movies lost their soul, but rather that I think everyone's trying to chase that high of having their expectations shattered again because they went into this thing with little to no faith in it, and they found themselves rewarded with something really earnest and sincere. And while the rest of the movies are earnest and sincere, they're going in with much higher expectations, right? They're not necessarily looking for a better quality film, but they're looking for that high of having their expectations shattered again. And I think that's maybe the core issue, right? They're not surprised by the Lego movie anymore, and it's not because the movies are not inventive or they're not like of a high quality, but simply because the audience are not going in with like no faith whatsoever, you know. And it's a shame too because I feel like that has robbed a lot of these films robbed these films of the literary analysis that I think they really deserve. Yeah, so that was my big thesis. I was gonna write a whole video about that, but then I thought, I don't know, this sounds kind of stupid. Uh, I don't know. I think it's really dumb to be like, oh, everyone just, they just hated the Lego movie outright. Like, I don't know. It's a really like bizarre reading. I think it's the only one that I can think of sometimes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I just wish I could like watch a cool analysis video on the Lego Ninjago movie, but like, I'm not gonna keel over and die because people don't like the movie or whatever, right? It's not the end of the world. Let's keep this train going and talk about a critique. I think the one thing that isn't super serious but has kind of slightly eroded the reputation of these films has definitely been like the weird obsession with like pop culture references that almost all of these films have. It's always been so weird, looking at these like kind of inane comic book news sites when the movie was coming out and everyone being so obsessed with like the one scene in the first Lego movie where everybody meets up at the dog in Cloud Cuckoo Land and Vitruvius just starts listing random pop culture icons, right? Like everyone was so obsessed with that one joke. And like, I don't know, I was like, even like when I was watching the film for the first time, I was just kind of like, man, this is like really lame. Like this barely even constitutes as a joke, and it's like the one thing that people wouldn't stop shutting up about. Like it took a while for the movies to get like some honestly really interesting discussion. A lot of it was just like, oh man, did you see how they had Shaquille O'Neal standing next to Michelangelo? Like it was just kind of like 4 months of that basically. And it's weird how like the Lego Batman movie kind of amplified that, you know? Like there's like five or six jokes that are just like characters like listing various Batman movies, right? Or just listing all of the villains that he's fought, or just listing like years where like Batman is. It's just like lists, just Wikipedia lists, just like listing stuff, and it's just like I don't know. It's weird, right? It's weird how like I don't I don't know what I don't want to say we're out of this era, but like there's definitely been like all these. I feel like the Lego Movie definitely inspired a lot of films that were just about celebrating the collection of IPs, right? Like like Ralph Breaks the Internet, Ready Player One, Space Jam 2, and it's weird how like we critique all of that stuff, but no one ever like re-examines the Lego Movie for that stuff because it was it was kind of mad annoying. It's weird though because it's like I feels weird how like even though everyone like dunks on Lego Ninjago and Lego Movie 2 or whatever, it's weird how like it feels like the Lego movies have gone unscathed. I guess maybe the thing is that like I guess the thing is sort of just like I guess maybe people had this expectation already when going into like the Lego movies, like Lego has access to a lot of properties, so it stands to reason if you're making a Lego movie that you'd have all these different characters interacting with each other. That this is the avenue where you get to have all these weird crossovers and stuff, and I guess that's that's fine or whatever, but it's like it's just kind of weird. And it's weird though because it's like because people were so obsessed with these types of jokes, it meant that like certain movies got like more discussion than other ones. Like I felt like everyone was always talking about Lego Batman movie and all the references and stuff, but like because like Lego Ninjago barely had any like pop culture references and stuff, I felt like it wasn't nearly as discussed as these other movies. Like at most you'd like just see someone being like, "Oh man, this one this one background character looks a little bit like Ferris Bueller. Isn't that crazy?" And then like no one would ever talk about anything about Ninjago. Uh, it was a little bit infuriating. I think another weird consequence of this is also just like there's a lot of really dumb, inane discussion about like future Lego movie projects too. Like I think the consequence of like having the Lego Batman movie be so focused on references is that like it gave everybody weird expectations about what the next movies in the film should be. Like I'd always see like these like lists of like top 10 Lego movies that should be made, and it's like really dumb stuff like the Lego Wolverine movie or like the Lego Lord of the Rings movie. And like I think the thing that people so much forget, and this is something I talked about in the Lego Batman movie video, is that like it's like the Lego Batman movie was like built off of like the character that they developed in the first movie, right? It wasn't just like it isn't like I don't like to look at Lego Batman as like just another Batman. He's very much his own character. He's so different from every other Batman that like it just feels weird to just kind of lump him in with like, oh, this is Tim Burton Batman, or this is the animated show Batman, or what. Like it's weird that like he just gets lumped in with that and he's not examined as his own character, because that to me the movie was built off of the character that they established in the first movie, right? So you can't just do a Lego Star Wars movie and then just superimpose Batman's personality onto a random character, right? Like you can't just do that, right? It wouldn't be nearly as interesting. I don't know. I think I don't want to call this the apex of this, but I do think that like the franchise reaches this apex of maybe like I think maybe the peak of this kind of weird obsession with pop culture references has to be the Gotham City Boys song in the Lego Movie 2, where it's just kind of like we have a musical that's just dedicated to DC references or whatever. It's not nearly as bad. I just think it's a little cringe. Uh, yeah. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I mean, obviously these films haven't been discussed nearly as much now because there isn't like a Lego movie in current development or whatever. The franchise is kind of just stagnant now. So it's kind of just like I don't know. It's just a weird phase in the discussion of these films where like everyone was like really obsessed with this one weird facet. I I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Here let's take a quick moment. I gotta I gotta look something up on Wikipedia real quickly. All right. I think it'd be kind of fun to just like blabber on about the Lego Ninjago movie. I explained in my Lego Ninjago movie video that like I feel like I think of so much about the Lego Ninjago movie like all the time. Honestly, it's so excellent at doing a lot of things, and it's always weird that like everybody, both non-Ninjago fans and Ninjago fans, just hate it. It sucks though because I remember I was getting ready to watch the Ninjago movie, and I was so excited to see people like give it reviews and stuff, but like so many people skipped it. Like so many reviewers just like skipped the film, and it drove me crazy. Like I don't know, man. I really love the Ninjago movie. I always feel like I'm on the brink of calling it my favorite out of the four, but like it always feels kind of sacrilegious, right? Like the Lego movie's the OG. It's the GOAT. It's the GOAT. It's peak. Like I don't know. It's always weird. Like, but I feel like I'm always on the brink of saying that because I love the Lego Ninjago movie a lot, honestly. A lot of that is honestly carried by the fact that like I was into Ninjago before the Ninjago movie came out, but I didn't grow up with Ninjago. I was around when the pilot episodes did come out. I don't remember if they premiered on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network first. I feel like I don't know why I remember them premiering on Nickelodeon. I don't think they did. But like I was around for the pilot and I maybe saw like one episode, but then I just wasn't like paying attention to it at all. For some random reason, as I was like getting ready to graduate from high school, I was just kind of like, man, what if I like, what if I just like binged Ninjago? Like binged this random rinky dinky Lego TV show, and I watched the entirety of Ninjago before I graduated high school up until I think at that point it was Skybound was the recent season. That was the most up-to-date season, and I think when I was in college, Hands of Time came out. So yeah, so I just basically watched all of Ninjago for like one summer. I just watched the entirety of Ninjago. I think that kind of separates. I think that's kind of what contributes to my opinions of the Lego Ninjago movie, because I didn't grow up with Ninjago, right? So I was examining it from someone who like wasn't like taking it nearly as seriously as everyone else is, because like, you know, I mean, I don't know, on one hand I think it's cool that people like do literary analysis of Ninjago and stuff and like critique it and stuff, but sometimes I feel like it's like people like get so bent out of shape about the movie, about it being not serious and whatever, and like seeing it as like, I don't know, like this bastardization of the Ninjago franchise. Sometimes I just look at these like goofy little colored minifigures in pajamas as I'm like, are we watching the same TV show? Like I don't know, it's very silly. And I think that's probably the thing I like the most about the Lego Ninjago movie, is that it very much reads as a parody of Ninjago, right? One of the weirdest comments I always saw about the Lego Ninjago movie was like, why are they doing a movie about this one boring franchise that no one knows about? It should have been the Lego Power Rangers movie. And I'm like, I feel like you're missing the forest for the trees, buddy, right? Like so much like boy-centric intellectual property, or like borrowing elements from Power Rangers, right? It'd be redundant to make a Lego Power Rangers movie, because I feel like them leaning into that facet, right, into like a Power Rangers parody, like informs that, right, informs like the tone of the movie. I don't know. There's so many different facets about the movie that are just really funny from someone who like loves Ninjago but doesn't take it too seriously. Like the main bad guys being the shark army. Like, why sharks, right? Why are they dressed up as fish people? um you know what I mean, right? Like it's like they're like this like private military organization, but they're fish themed. It's also especially really random too, because like Garmadon still has the same backstory as he does in the main show, where he was bitten by a snake and that's why he looks weird. So why is he not hanging out with snake people? So it's really weird. I don't know. It's very funny. And then once again, it's the whole deal with the giant mechs, right? Like, why are ninjas who are supposed to be like super stealthy or whatever? Why are they why are they driving on these massive, brightly colored vehicles all the time? So like, I feel like it's really funny for like the movie to just like go all out and make all these giant mechs just as weird and crazy as possible. Zane's driving around in a giant like pyramid tank, and Kai has like the giant flamethrower robot, and it's like it feels like there's all this like really silly stuff, just like constantly throughout the film, that just like feels like it's poking fun at itself. That I think is really funny. Obviously, we have like the big MacGuffin, right? There's always a MacGuffin that they always have to collect. So you have the ultimate weapon, which I don't know if that was supposed to be a take on the ultimate weapon from the show, where like all of the golden weapons kind of fused together into this big golden drumstick thingy that Garmadon uses in like the second season or whatever. But then you also have the ultimate weapon, and then that just becomes a bunch of other MacGuffins that they also have to like a bunch of little tchotchkes that they have to collect, that gives them special powers or whatever. Like I don't know, like if you watch the show, right, all these different elements just like read as someone trying to make fun of Ninjago, and I just think it's really funny. I love it a lot. A lot of that also has to do with it also kind of like working as like a classic kung fu movie homage. All the different idiosyncrasies that come with that genre get applied to this movie as well, especially all the whip cracks. I don't know, I just I just think that I love the tone of the movie. I think the best encapsulation of just like the weird tone has to be like the weird like Wilhelm scream combo that they do in the first part, in the first mech fight. I don't know, I love that stuff. I have no idea whether or not this because I don't want to get into animation just yet, but I love all the weird like HDR stuff. Like for some reason they reuse a lot of clips for characters talking, especially when the characters are like in their masks and stuff. They just like reused like a clip like a few seconds after they played it, even though the audio was different. I don't know. It's really weird. I can't tell if this is supposed to be an intentional thing about like like how like a lot of these movies get dubbed from other languages and stuff. But I always found it was kind of silly. Speaking of voices, I wanted to talk about the voice cast a little bit. I like I love the voice cast. I love the Ninjago voice cast. It's so insane. It's weird. I think it's weird how bizarrely accurate a lot of these characters sound, right? Like, Fred Armisen as Cole, like, I never paid attention to him when I was watching the movies before, because he only has, like, he only has, like, 4 lines in the film, but, like, when you listen to him, he sounds, like, exactly like Cole in the show. Michael Pena is also weird, too. He sounds so much like Kai. It's so unreal. Like, I love the casting. I love the casting. I don't know when I'm ever going to talk about this, because maybe I'll eventually do like a Lego video game retrospective. But I think Kai's voice actor in the Ninjago movie game is so weird, because like Michael Pena, it sounds like he's doing a Kai impression in the movie, but in the game it kind of sounds like they're doing a Michael Pena impression. So for some reason, Kai in the video game sounds like Michael Pena, but Kai in the movie sounds like Kai from the TV show. It's very silly. I also think Jackie Chan as Master Wu is very inspired. I don't have a whole lot of notes about his performance as Master Wu. I think I'm really endeared by Jackie Chan's performance in general. I don't know. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I rewatched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem recently. I also liked him as Splinter there. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Justin Theroux. I hope I'm saying his name right. As Garmadon. He's the breakout hit. He kind of brings a Will Arnett Batman sort of energy to Garmadon. I don't know. I'm having a hard time really bringing out a lot of specific thoughts about some of these characters, but like I don't know. I really loved Garmadon in this movie. I really loved the energy that Justin brought to the character. I feel like I could probably just watch like hours upon hours of him just saying random nonsense. I found the character really fun. Trying to think of like some other like specific stuff. I don't know. I feel like I really loved the voice cast. I really loved the voice cast a lot. it's kind of annoying that like the tentpole cast doesn't get a whole lot to say, because I'm really happy with like the casting. I think everybody sounds really great. I think it's really the one frustrating thing about my approach to this videos is that I never get to talk about art stuff, which is weird because like, I'm an artist and I love art and stuff and I love animation, but sometimes I feel like I don't have the right vocabulary and knowledge to talk about art stuff, so it always feels kind of weird to like, talk about that stuff. I'm saying this because I wanted to talk about the animation. It feels kind of criminal that I'm talking about the Lego movies and I haven't talked about the animation yet. But like, I don't know. It's hard to talk about the animation because I feel like the first Lego movie was really revolutionary in its approach to how it wanted to do stylized animation. I wasn't quite there yet. It feels like they were trying to figure out some more techniques to help them break out of the limitations of trying to emulate stop motion. And I think that their approach in the Lego Batman movie was really solid. For one thing, they do this thing where like they use specific they're a lot more looser with the posing of the characters, because the minifigure is comprised of different pieces that connect to each other. They can kind of like remove pieces and like move an arm, position an arm a specific way or not, because they're not limited to the limitations of real life. So, a piece can move here and move there in a specific way to to kind of give more flexibility to these characters. You can add pieces. I think the most fun thing is definitely like having smears be added. Like the first Lego movie had like regular smears, which I mean in the grand scheme of things isn't like super crazy. This isn't like a big deal, but like I think I like their approach to smear frames in the subsequent films, because they use actual Lego pieces to emulate it, and it I don't know, it just looks a lot smoother. Like the characters feel like they're not nearly as rigid, which is weird because they're still running on like low frame rates. Speaking of frame rates, I feel like the frame rates change. Like it isn't like the characters are like limited to a specific frame rate. Like they'll sometimes animate on different frame rates to emphasize a specific joke. They did it a little bit in the first Lego movie, but I feel like they do it a lot more in the subsequent films. And I don't know, I don't know, and like it felt like they had the animation team, I believe Animal Logic, right? That was the main animation company, that studio that did a lot of the animation for these films. I felt like they had a really good handle on how they wanted to merge the animation medium with Lego, and using creative ways to make these movies feel a lot more fleshed out. I feel like the Lego Batman movie was like the peak of like how these movies animated really well, and like I feel like the movies kind of plateaued. They all look really good, but I never felt like beyond the Lego Batman movie these films were really like innovating in animation. At least like not, I mean like animating more. Like they wasn't like a perpetual sense of innovation, where it's kind of more like they had their first pass in the Lego movie, then they figured out some new techniques in the Lego Batman movie, and then for the next two films they used those techniques. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's like a short span of time between films, right? Like I think there's a larger gap between the first Lego movie and Lego Batman movie, and then there's a shorter gap between Batman, Ninjago, and sequel. I'm saying all this is to say that like I think the Lego Ninjago movie isn't doing anything better than what the Lego Batman movie established, but just by proxy of the fact that these techniques are just really interesting to look at, I think the Lego Ninjago movie benefits from them. I don't know, it can be kind of evident in a lot of the few fight scenes. I wish there were more fight scenes in the Lego Ninjago movie. All the fight scenes and like all the parkour that all the ninjas do are really they're all really impressive, and they all look really great. And the fact that they all had They were all kind of choreographed by Jackie Chan, kind of contributes to that. It has that sort of physical comedy sort of energy to it. And I think the Lego movies really do benefit from, especially the Wu Garmadon fight in the jungle. I really love that one a lot. It's a really it's a really fun scene. I don't know. It sucks too because I definitely remember I remember distinctly there was a deleted scene of a really cool fight scene between Lloyd and some of the Shark Army generals, where they're fighting over a baby in an apartment. It's just it carried that really fun like Jackie Chan physicality that like you see in a lot of his films, and it was just a really good scene. It kind of sucked that like. I mean, I get it, right? Because the whole deal is that the ninjas are relying too much on their mechs, right? So them having like these actual fights on the ground would kind of erode that theming that they were setting up. But I don't know. I mean, it sucks that like they had a good handle on how to approach animation, and they had someone who's like really experienced with fight choreography. It just kind of sucks that like they didn't do more with that. I think that's kind of the thing that separates my thoughts on the Lego Ninjago movie from the other movies. Is just that like I always feel like, man, I wish there was more of this, like I never feel completely satisfied when watching the Lego Ninjago movie, not because it's like a bad film, but because it's so much fun that like I just kind of wish there was more of it, like whenever I watch Lego Movie 1, Lego Batman movie, or Lego Movie 2, I always kind of feel satisfied. Like I had fun, I enjoyed it a lot, I thought the movies were really good, and I feel really like content. But with Lego Ninjago movie, I'm always just kind of like, man, I want to see more of this. Like I just want to see more, man, Speaking of which, I love the character design in the Lego Ninjago movie. There's some characters that don't really change much between like their OG versions and the movie versions, like Garmadon and Wu. I do like that Wu has a more stylized beard. The ninja and Wu benefit from something that I always really liked in the Lego movie, and it's how they approached animating Vitruvius talking. So like when they animate Vitruvius, his beard moves around, and they like kind of like take off his head like slightly off of the socket, so that he can make these like more interesting like facial expressions, even though he just has like eyes and the beard. Like I don't know, it's hard to explain without just showing it, but just like I feel like Vitruvius was always just really like, he was always a very fast, like satisfying character to watch, if I could put it, just because of the way they were able to animate his face talking. And the ninja, especially when they have their masks on, kind of benefit from that. And I don't know, it's the way that they're able to move around the mask piece to get them to like to show them talking. It's really endearing. I also love all of the civilian clothes for the ninja. Once again, I love Kai being the jock. I also love Jay's design. I love Jay in this film, honestly. Like, Jay is so much fun. He carries that sort of early Jay energy from the first 3 seasons, where he's always like going on weird, unhinged rants and screaming all the time. But they challenge it from like crazy like angry energy to crazy like anxious energy, and it's really fun. And I love that that's kind of carried with his character design, with the big jacket and why am I forgetting what that thing is? The thing around his neck, man. I'm an idiot. I don't know. I really love the way the characters are designed. I think if I had one critique, I think it's probably the music, which is weird because I as of the past few years, I've been on a weird like Mark's Motherboard. Man, this is bad. I can't believe I pronounced his name. I really like the composer of the movie. I think he did the music for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and I've been listening to that a lot, so I've been on a weird kick. But like, I don't know, I felt like the soundtrack could have been more interesting, which is weird because he did a really good job with Lego Movie 1. And I felt like a lot of the music for the other films were a little bit more bespoke compared to Ninjago, where it didn't feel like, it didn't feel very Ninjago-y. I don't know. I also don't like a lot of the licensed tracks too. I think a lot of them are really lame, except for the Dance of Doom. Man, I used to be obsessed with the Dance of Doom. And that was before I had like this weird like Lewis Cole binge where like I just watched all kinds of like, I watched everything from Lewis Cole, listened to everything from Lewis Cole, and I was obsessed with him for a bit. And then like I was like re-listening to the Lego Ninjago movie soundtrack, and like I was like, wait a second, Lewis Cole wrote the Dance of Doom? Like I don't know, I really liked that one. The one thing I'm disappointed is that we never got a cool like version of the Weekend Whip exclusive to the movie. Like the Weekend Whip shows up as like a ringtone, the dreaded ringtone cameo. Good grief. All my homies hate ringtone cameos. It shows up as a ringtone, as Lloyd's ringtone, but I think it would have been really cool to get like a version of, you know, the Weekend Whip that sounds like a big cinematic, like Hollywood movie score. You know, I just think a movie version of the Weekend Whip would be really cool. I think someone should try and make their own version of the Weekend. I've seen people make their own Weekend Whip versions. I want to see someone make a cinematic universe Weekend Whip or a Master Builder Whip, man. I'd kill for that. Before I get off the Lego Ninjago train, I have like one question about the Lego Ninjago movie. So there's the bit like halfway where like Lloyd fires the ultimate weapon and summons Meowthra. And then like Garbodor's like, oh no, the ultimate weapon, don't fire it. And you know, it turns out that it's not an actual like laser, but it's a laser pointer that summons Meowthra. So like, the thing I'm kind of curious about is that does Garbodor know that the ultimate weapon summons Meowthra? Because he recognizes the ultimate weapon. He recognizes Meowthra. And he's eventually able to put two and two together that the weapon controls Meowthra. So that's why he disarms Lloyd and takes the weapon. But like, did he know that the weapon summoned Meowthra before? Or was he like kind of like playing dumb so that he could like kind of like goat Lloyd into firing it? Like, I don't know. That's always been something I thought about because I was watching it recently for the video and I was like, huh, what's going on here? Is Garmadon actually dumb or is he like playing dumb? I don't know. Alright, before we get out of here, it's time for us to talk about the real reason I made this entire video in the first place, which is talking about the ships. The ships. I have a lot of thoughts about the weird ships that are established in a lot of these films, and I wanted to talk about them because some of them had me discussing some thoughts on the stories and stuff, but I never got around to actually talk about them. So yeah, let's do that. A quick few ground rules that I'm going to be talking about stuff that's established in the films, so not like kind of like ancillary stuff. So like, I'm not going to be talking about like, you know, the bad cop Benny ship, because like there's nothing to say about that in the actual film, right? Like, how many lines does bad cop actually say to Benny, right? So yeah, I kind of just wanted to examine some of the romantic ships in some of these films, starting with Lego Movie 1, Emmett and Lucy. I want to note here that I'm going into this very like, I'm not like a shipper. I don't have any skin in the game, but like, I don't know. I feel like Emmett's style was like the closest thing to me actually shipping these characters. I've drawn like art of these characters before, but man, I don't know. I mean, the most recent times I've been watching the first Lego movie, I've just not been into this ship. It's always kind of irritated me, mostly because they make Emmett like kind of radiate weird incel energy, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't know. I hate the way that it's like the one big flaw I have with the first movie is just the way Emmett treats Wildstyle. It always just feels really weird, like especially when Batman gets reintroduced. It's like, no, Batman, you're a big mean guy. You shouldn't be hanging out with Lucy. I should. And it's just like, man, that's just so weird. I don't know. I hate how it kind of erodes the kind of the sweet, tender energy that Emmett has, right? Being like weirdly combative about Batman. And then of course there's the ending where like Batman's like, oh man, you saved the entire universe, kid. You should totally have my girlfriend. Have my girlfriend as a reward for saving the multiverse. It's so dumb. It's so weird and cringe and I hate it. Of course, Emmett doesn't radiate that energy anymore in the second movie, because they're already dating, I think. I don't know. I don't know what the deal with that is. I don't know what the deal with that is. Because it's like they kind of like, I feel like they kind of skirt around the idea of them dating, It's way more implicit uh, in the second movie more than I remembered it, because Emmett clearly has a very emotional, has an emotional like distress about Lucy being captured in the second film. And he's very invested in how Lucy sees him and trying to impress her and stuff. But they never like say that they're dating. They're just kind of like really, really, really good roommates or something. They're friends with benefits. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with the Lego movies not being into Emmett and Lucy making out or whatever. um, that's all I have to say about the Lego Movie 2 for right now. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The Lego Batman movie. I feel like the Lego Batman movie houses the only good ship, and that's the Batman and the Joker. They're doing that kind of weird thing where like it's like these two characters that are like enemies kind of see themselves as this couple or whatever. It's I feel like in any sort of instance like a TV show or whatever, I feel like that kind of thing would kind of get kind of boring and repetitive. But I feel like they developed that joke like a lot. They developed that kind of gag of Batman and the Joker being like this couple on the rocks thing. It feels like a way more developed joke, or at the very least, it feels like it has the space to develop, you know. And it also helps too that like it's not just it really isn't just a joke. Really, the core of Batman learning to appreciate the people in his life also involves him appreciating the place that the Joker has in his life. So it kind of stops being a joke and starts being like a part of this facet of the movie becomes a part of these characters' journeys to grow as people. So it's something that like starts becoming a very ironic thing, but then eventually develops into something being very earnest. And I don't know. I think it's really cool. I think honestly, if I was setting this up in a tier list, this would probably be like the one ship to end all ships. The Batman movie also houses the worst ship, I think. I don't know, and see that's the thing, right? That's like there isn't a whole lot of shipping, like, cause like you could just like make up random stuff, right? Like, you know, like shipping like Kai and Cole in the Lego Ninjago movie, but that doesn't really amount to anything, right? So this is kind of one of those things where like this next one is kind of one of those things where it's like it's not really like an actual ship that the movie posits, and that's Batman and Barbara Gordon, which is very, very whack, if you know what I'm saying. It's the wackest ship of them all. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the way that they represent Batman, right? So I explained in my Batman video that like the way that they interpret Batman is that he's a composite of every single Batman interpretation ever, and so his age is the same age as like the Batman IP as a whole. So he's like 80 years old, right? He's like 80, 75 years old, and he's like hitting on like what, like a 25-year-old. Straight up whack, man. Just completely whack. It's weird. Yeah, especially since Barbara definitely grew up like watching Batman, right?
You know, when I was a kid, I wanted to be you, Batman. I wanted to be as strong and as fast and as smart as Batman.
So it's just a really weird dynamic having that in the back of your mind. I think it's very funny. It's very funny, the idea of Batman and the Joker literally being 80 years old. It's very funny, but it also leads to some really weird, gross stuff. Speaking of whack stuff, we could probably quickly move on to the Lego Ninjago movie. The Lego Ninjago movie does not have a whole lot of ships. It actually has an anti-ship because Coco and Garmadon are divorced. It's an anti-ship. But like, I don't know, I think the only feasible, and I'm stretching really hard for this, I feel like the only feasible ship that might maybe like feasibly could exist is maybe like Lloyd and Nia, right? Which is kind of a weird thing to maybe explore. So for anybody who's not a big Ninjago head, one of the things about Lloyd is that he's like way younger than the ninjas when he's first introduced in the TV show. So when he finally joins the team, he's like kind of young and he can't like, you know, join in on fights or whatever. But there's one adventure that they have where like all of the other ninja get turned into kids, and so by the end of the story, all the ninjas get reverted to their regular ages, but then Lloyd ages up with them. so he becomes the same age as the ninja. And some of those early like episodes where Lloyd was a part of the team, Nia was always looking after Lloyd, and they kind of had like this like little brother big sister sort of energy to them. That's some that I think also kind of carries over into like the more recent seasons as well. So it's always kind of weird, like, because like the Lego Ninjago movie is kind of like a reboot, right? It's kind of like, what if Lloyd was always the same age as the ninja or whatever. So it's kind of weird. I think honestly this is like just the most idiotic thing in the entire world, because like these characters, like it never really feels like that's kind of the energy that they radiate. The only reason why I'm ever positing this is that it kind of feels like Nia isn't into Jay in the movie, but at the same time they're kind of hiding next to each other when the Temple of Fragile Foundations is collapsing, which is once again another really stupid conjecture thing. The only reason why I'm considering this is that in one of the bloopers, one of the blooper reel that they animated, there's a bit where like, I don't know, like Lloyd and Nia are like having conversations about Lloyd's hair, and it kind of sounds like they're flirting, but I don't know, it's just it's such a dumb thing. It's not a real thing. All right, it's time for the grand finale of this very idiotic conversation. This is actually the entire reason why I wanted to make this video, and I wanted to talk about the Lego Movie 2 and Batman and Queen Whatever Wannabe. That's the other. This is probably, it's weird. Honestly, this is so weird, honestly, because I was so not into this ship when I was first watching the movie, but I turned around on it when I rewatched the second movie for the videos. I should explain myself. So I think my main thing is just sort of like, I really don't like the angle as how the ship starts, because I don't like the idea of like someone manipulating someone else into marriage. I think that's just kind of a weird angle, right? To have that relationship start in that way with Queen Whatever, like manipulating or gaslighting Batman into marrying her. I think the one reason why I was not into this is probably the way I interpreted Batman in the second movie. So when they're introducing Apocalypseburg, there's what is it? There's the scene where when they get introduced to Batman, and he's like, oh man, I went on this big adventure, and like, I made friendships, and I grew as a person, and all that had to be erased or whatever. And like, obviously that's probably a joke about how like every Batman has to be about him being like, a loner or whatever. But when I was watching the movie, I interpreted that as the Lego Batman movie being erased from canon. So like Batman, like he had this whole journey about him opening himself up and growing as a person, and not isolating himself, and learning to trust other people. And then because of like the mental state of Finn and whatever, that entire adventure got erased from existence alongside all of Batman's supporting cast. So now he remembers the events of the Lego Batman movie, but he can never see his friends again. He only gets Alfred as a consolation. So like, so my gag was like my thoughts on the Lego Batman movie, or at least the interpretation of Batman in the Lego Movie 2, was that he was a character who gained all these friendships, and then he immediately lost them. So it felt really weird that like Queen Whatever was able to pick up on this and use that to her advantage to manipulate him. I don't read it that way anymore. I still think my reading is very fun, very funny, but like, I don't know, I think the whole point of the Master Builders visiting Sistar system is an attempt for them to like, push beyond themselves, like drop their guards and give themselves the ability to be themselves again, because of how long they've spent like being bitter and angry. They kind of lost touch with themselves. And I think that the musical number between Queen Whatever and Batman was kind of her attempts to try and like push Batman a little bit, to try and break beyond his comfort zones. Because ultimately, like similar to the rest of the Master Builders, they're in an environment where they're able to just kind of be themselves. Like Batman especially this version of Batman, feels like the kind of person who would enjoy planning out an elaborate party. And I feel like because his guard is up, he would never have the chance to ever like, realize that he enjoys doing this and enjoys being with people who recognizes the things that he likes. And even back then, even when I was like so not into this ship, the way that they're written after that song is just really endearing. You really get the sense that they really care about each other. So it's like, I don't know, it was weird really turning around on this ship. But yeah, I don't know, that's kind of it. Yeah. uh, one last thing, one last thing. So I think my favorite joke out of any of these movies ever is so there's the bit in the Lego Batman movie where they're getting ready to go after the Joker and his new crew, and Barbara's like, "Oh yeah, you gotta list all of your abilities or whatever." When they're talking to the Rogues Gallery, and she goes up to Orca, and Orca just goes, "I'm well."